We have another question that is, how have you found a support group beneficial to you?
Well, I post-transplant moved back in with my parents in Mississippi and tried to attend a support group that was hosted at my local hospital. My experience actually turned me off to support groups for a while because I showed up as this 20 something who had had a transplant very suddenly. I didn't know anything about my body and how it worked beforehand. So I was learning all this new information. I was going there like hope against hope, looking for someone to say like it's gonna get better. Look at us, like all those things. Any I was like grasping at straws. And I go to the support group, and it's mostly people over 50 who have had transplants and their partners. And before the end of that first meeting, I realized they're looking to me for inspiration. They're like, oh, you're young and healthy now. And what are you going to do with your life? And they were all talking about how much meds they take and all their comorbidities and planning their funerals. Like, I was not in the same place or the same mindset. And all I wanted was like one person to say, like, it's going to be fine. Like, that would have gotten me through. And instead, I left feeling like I was expected to be performing well. Like, oh, I have to inspire them because look at how desperate they are for hope. And I remember thinking, I don't want to go. Like, that's a lot of energy to put out when you're going for support and you end up being the one that everyone's looking to say, like, oh, look how great you are. I'm like, but I don't feel great. This is hard. Like, someone tell me that it's hard, but that you didn't give up on life. And honestly, didn't go back to an in-person support group for over 10 years. So I don't want to discourage anyone from trying again. But I've found a lot more community in virtual support groups, and like age-based or city-based type things.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brooke. Um, for me, I didn't really go to any support groups other than just really informal things with Instagram and lots of Instagram messaging and just creating my own support group. I don't know if my transplant center hosted any support groups, but if they did, I think that I felt like I fell so much out of the norm that it wouldn't be helpful for me. And so that's why I was so grateful to find something like Transplant Life, where they were bringing people together virtually that have been through some of the same things that I have been through. And that I love Zoom and I love virtual things to begin with. So having um, a forum where I can meet people from all different places, because I don't know that there's many people that I know right now where I live currently that have experienced a transplant. So mine has just been kind of on the fly, or find some people and gather them up has been my approach.
Mhm. Yeah, I was transplanted right in the middle of COVID. So there wasn't a lot out there in terms of support. It very much felt like, okay, here you go. Now you're on your own. I did do a little bit of like support groups while I was in the hospital and while we were staying close to my transplant center. And I found it really frustrating because I met so many people that I had a transplant and now I'm fine. And that wasn't my experience. I had a really, really messy transplant journey. And I wanted to be able to say, this is really hard and I don't know what I'm doing. And for that to be okay. And I felt like I couldn't because my experience didn't fit inside the norm. And I mean, it was just the people that were at my transplant center and we were all sitting with masks on, like, and it wasn't, that kind of connection that as I moved away from that and came home and I found my community kind of online of people that were in a similar life phase to me who didn't have everything perfect and go well for them. And they were able to say to me, hey, it's okay. Like, I didn't have the shiny story either. And this is what I made out of my life. One of my teachers always says, if you can't see it, you can't imagine it for yourself. And I didn't realize how much I needed that. I needed people who knew how hard it was, but also made something from it so I could imagine that for myself. I didn't just need to see a transplant. I needed to see myself reflected back to me. And that was the moment that support groups really connected with me, was when I made that connection.